Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick, and it's March.
That was a little loud. Sorry, I came in a little too hot. This is March, folks. Welcome. The madness is here. The A-Sun gets underway 16 minutes ago. So March is officially here. The madness has officially begun. I'm so excited. I love this time of year.
It's going to be great. It's the first time in a long time that a JMU team.
Oh, you got a clicky pen today.
Oh, yeah. Has not only a men's basketball team, I guess we should say, right? Important clarification there. But a JMU men's basketball team goes in the conference tournament as a favorite and maybe even the potential to win some NCAA tournament games. The women have sort of been in that spot numerous times over the years. They're a contender again this year. It's a great time to be a college basketball fan.
A strong possibility that come this time next week, the Dukes have two teams in the NCAA tournament.
It's possible.
Did I do my math right? Will the Pensacola Invitational be done by next Monday?
Yeah, they play the men, I guess, I guess they both play on the Monday. So I think the women get the afternoon slot because, God forbid, they get like a cool TV spot or streaming spot time-wise. And then the men, I think, are Monday night. So, yeah, we'll either do a real late one or we'll do a Tuesday one. We'll figure it out.
But that's perfect because if they're tipping off on Monday, that means you can head on over to Three Notch, get your Minuteman pours in, drink some Minuteman beer over at Three Notch. Or if Minuteman's not necessarily your jam, you can pick from any of their awesome brews at the Valley Collab House right there in downtown Harrisonburg.
Yeah, I think Minuteman's pretty good. But then you enjoy that. Then you go in Tuesday because you're celebrating the fact that JMU's going to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade. You get a half off on a case. You can go back in later in the week, watch some ACC tournament games if you want. In Virginia, I don't know if they'll be playing on the Friday or exactly how it works. I'm pretty salty about them, but they'll be playing. And you can get first half Fridays. You get to try out a new brew in the Valley Collab House. What's better than that on a Friday afternoon, evening, night? Nothing
at all. It sounds like a perfect day. So head on over to our friends at the Valley Collab House with Three Notch. Locations also in Charlottesville, Richmond, Virginia Beach, Nelson County, and Roanoke. So a lot of places you can get your Three Notched fix. Another place you can get your betting fix is Bet Online. It continues to be your number one source for all of your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. Up to the minute odds, stats, and trends. You can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or mobile device. Head to Bet Online today to become a part of the team. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE. That's promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And before we go to our friends who are both luxurious and laid back, I wanted to tell you a quick little story, Bennett.
Okay.
You know how you're the lightest weight in terms of alcohol known to man?
Yes. Aside from like infants.
Maybe. I think I have you beat.
You personally?
I'm doing the 75 soft, so you only drink during the 75 soft challenge in like social situations. So I've cut down like alcohol consumption 99%. That made me sound like an alcoholic.
I'm only drinking with people now, so it's never.
Yeah. But like it's made my tolerance so little. I had one beer and I was like, I'm Bennett. I'm drunk.
Get it now.
Yeah, I get it. So I get your plight. So when you go to Minuteman Monday with Three Notched, be a little wary. So because you could be drinking some Minuteman beers, and next thing you know, you want to go to our friends that are both luxurious and laid back.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
Come on. Oh, I know that guy.
So sorry about that. A little teaser to what's coming next. Starting off today's episode, we're going to dive fully into breaking down what's going to happen at Pensacola, men's basketball, women's basketball. Maybe see if kind of those second half collapses are something we should worry about for men's basketball, or if they're just kind of a blip on the radar and they'll move forward going into Pensacola as they look to punch their ticket. Same with women's basketball. We'll update some injury stuff, the emergence of Annalisa Goodman, and preview their stuff going into Pensacola. We got a packed episode as well with football to talk about because the schedules dropped. You got baseball, softball, some swim and dive stuff in there. Lacrosse is in there as well. But lacrosse is going to be what starts us off today. We sat down with the women's lacrosse head coach, Shelly Clays, about 4 or 5 days ago and talked with her about kind of the overall success of the Dukes this season and overall success of the Dukes really since she's taken over and has turned them into a perennial power.
He's the head coach of the JMU lacrosse program to the podcast for the first time. Shelly, thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Happy to be here with you boys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Obviously, the program's had a ton of success in recent years. This year, 5-0 start, win over North Carolina in the opening game. How would you assess the early season schedule for your team?
You know, I'm proud of the schedule that we've built over the years, and for us to have a familiar feeling with opening up with UNC is a part of that, right? You got to get started with a bang, so to speak, and for us, our girls to have the mentality now that they were the ones who set the tone in the offseason that they wanted to win this game. And, you know, for them to have that kind of a lofty goal, I think sets the tone early. And I'm excited to see they actually followed through with the action.
Yeah, that's awesome. And right behind you is a banner for the national championship from 2018. And 2018 started with a win over UNC early on in that season. This year starting the same way, but kind of just an overarching question is, how have you had such sustained success with the program from winning a national championship in 2018? You made it back, a tough loss last year to Syracuse, but had the firepower to maybe have another run. And then this year it looks like primed for yet another deep postseason run.
Well, I think that's literally what all us coaches are trying to do is find a way to experience that feeling of seniority again. Because a lot of times it takes special people to be able to have success and then to have repeated success when you have a dynamic where coaches leave and athletes leave, hopefully after 4 or 5 years, which we've benefited from. So I think that's part of the success. That turnover factor, I think, is really challenging for college coaches to have to manage. And so always finding the right people to be surrounded by, you know, it does take a village. There's no way one person can orchestrate all of it on their own. And so for me, constantly finding the right people, you know, when coaches leave, finding better coaches, when athletes leave, finding better athletes. And then I've been fortunate to have very consistent leadership above me. And so I think there's a lot of little pieces to the puzzle of the success we've had here at JMU.
That makes a ton of sense. How do you go about keeping players for 4 or 5 years, especially in sort of this new era of college sports where that seems like a challenge for pretty much everyone else?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. And the first thing that came to my head was, well, we're not trying to keep them happy. And I think that that's what a lot of people would think is happening for you to keep your athletes. This is an elite level program. We're working on trying to make our athletes feel empowered by the process itself, through the grind, you know, feeling good about successes, but also feeling good about failures within the program, and that everyone's experience is going to be uniquely to themselves, from the players down to the coaches again. And so trying to not, even though we're all so competitive and we thrive on comparing and contrasting, and trying to not do so much of that within their own program, because we all are going to have different roles. And so I think that's a big part of my job as a head coach, is creating this environment where regardless of their role, they feel like they're getting better every day and growing with the team. And that's how I think we can retain the athletes that are finding success. They still feel like they're getting something out of it. But then the athletes who are also doing the grunt work behind the scenes and are never stepping out on the field, they feel a part of it too. And so we're not losing the top or the bottom.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And excuse me, awesome insight. One of the players that has stuck around for a while decided to come back, use their last year of eligibility, Isabella Peterson. I mean, she has her name across the JMU records book. I think coming into this year, she already held the records for goals and all the fun, flashy numbers. And she's just gonna, just dominate and destroy every single one of the records even more. But what does it mean to have kind of one of your big time players that gets all of the headlines decide to come back and use that last year of eligibility?
Well, I think it speaks to the story, right? The Breeze did an article about her recently and keyed in on the fact that we were the only offer that came her way. And so I think we're trying to ingrain in these student athletes to remember your roots, and to make that a part of your value system, and to never let your ego get too big for your own britches, so to speak, right? So Bella's a huge part of that. She came here ready to work. She had uh, uh, a little chip on her shoulder from the recruiting process, and we've been just trying to channel that energy into the right place. And she's had a great experience. So, it feels good to take a program on your back like she has in her time here at JMU, and to really catapult us back into the national scene.
Is there something you look for in the recruiting process for players like Bella who maybe go under recruited, but obviously have pretty tremendous potential?
Well, I think when you sit down in a field, the top 10%, everyone can see that. It's obvious. And so, yeah, you notice that. But then you also see who else is competing and which of those athletes do I feel could be better than the ones that the eye just draws to right away. And Bella was one of those players. And her size, whether or not she was going to continue to grow strength and speed, quickness, agility with that size, that was the big question. But her being a multi-sport athlete, having great training regimen off the field, and then, you meet her, right? She was just so determined. I felt like she had a lot of the intangibles to reach her full potential.
And then this last game, kind of narrowing in on this season, you were without Peterson due to the red card she picked up against Towson, but Maddie Epke came on and did what Epke does, it seems like. What is it like having Peterson, and then when she's out for a game, you have Epke, and then just kind of this deep roster of talent, it seems like, that you can just kind of plug and chug, replace and see, and things keep rolling?
Well, that's why we were able to come up with these big results, right? I think leading into the UNC game, everyone knew who Bella was, to your point. But who else did we have? And I think that Maddie has done a great job of changing the angles that she's dodging from. She's coming from more high than low. She's able to get down to net, so to speak, turn the corner really well on her defenders. And she's creating a nice little triangle vector with Isabella coming from the left side, Maddie coming from the right side, and then having Caitlin Morgan and Casey Knobloch coming from behind the goal, right? So you have just a really balanced offensive unit now that really puts a defensive unit, it stretches them to be able to have enough defensive players that can take away all of it. And depending, one or the other can step up game day, right? Maddie's shown she can do it multiple times, which has been great for us.
Yeah, no, the offense is insane at this point. The defense, a lot of young faces there. What have you seen from the development on that end? Seems like they've had some nice performances early.
Well, when you originally started talking about the success, one of the things that came to my mind was COVID era, and just how hard that was for every program to work through. And I think this concept of culture came out of it being really important again, right? And so, one of the things that I thought we did a really good job with was working on positional flexibility, right? Making sure that everyone had a really good foundation of an understanding of what we were trying to do defensively. Even though we were a zone, we could move people around and not just have this 1 or 2 players for this one spot. And that mentality and practice regimen, I think, paired with the next man ready, which was another huge challenge that we had to overcome in athletics. The person that was practicing all week could just be gone all of a sudden, and the next person had to step in even if they didn't get the reps. It was crazy. And so now really taking those 2 concepts and putting it into a whole unit, right? So you have so many people graduate. We have 5 newcomers currently in this starting lineup. A couple sophomores like Courtney Quirk, with her just really fast feet, able to cover a lot of space, really helping with our ability to extend and get out on ball. But she's also got really great hands and takeaway ability. So you're seeing her break up a lot of play as well as clean up a lot of trash in the ground balls. Caitlin Bowden, sophomore, coming in the cage. And then you have your upperclassmen like Nikki Marshall, who got moved from more of the inside of our system to the outside. Alex Piracino stepping up and playing high with Quirk a lot of times. And then the freshman, right? Ava Bleckley coming in and owning that crease with Nikki, and Maddie Waybrett giving us legs and adjustability on the defensive end. She can come in and we can move any personnel around to clean up some things that we're seeing mid-game. So yeah, we're really loving the defensive unit itself. And then the middies are just, they're covering a lot of ground for us. You'll see Taylor Marchetti, Maggie Clark, Bree Manella, Josie Pell coming all the way down to the crease to cover space, not just playing high. And so, all the players are really extended in their roles, and I think they're playing well. It's been great to see.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of names there, but I want to back it up to Caitlin Bowden, the sophomore keeper. She's replacing Kat Buchanan, a fantastic keeper in her own right. And now all of a sudden it seems like Bowden, that's some big shoes to fill, but she's done a fantastic job this year. What have you seen out of the sophomore in the cage this year?
Well, I think it speaks to goalie world itself. Again, the practice environment that we have here, because you've seen that the last couple of years, right? You have Molly Doherty, who dominated the position for 6 years. That's a long time. And then, Kat Buchanan, who sat and waited for her chance in her 5th year, finally gets the nod and steps up in 1 year and becomes a regional All-American, gets us back to the Elite 8, right? And then boom, the next year, right now, Caitlin Bowden, as a sophomore, is stepping in. And that was a really difficult decision for us to make. It wasn't like she was just, the best on our team, on our roster. Goalie world's really competitive. So I think, Adanya Moyer pushing, Emily Evans pushing, puts Caitlin Bowden in a situation where she has to work every single day. And because of that uncomfortability, I think she's doing a great job of weathering the pressure of having to face these really high level teams, as a first year starter.
That's awesome. Bennett, sorry to interrupt your next question, but I have to ask, this might be a dumb question. Goalie world, is that what you call your goalie room?
That's what we call our goal unit. Yeah. Matt Snyder heads it up. Currently we have 3 goalies in goalie world, but anyone who might be injured and limited in some capacity always heads down to goalie world and helps us out in some capacity with shots, passes, tendencies from the opponents that we're going to face, and just helping our goalie unit get better. So yeah, goalie world, it's a big part of our practice regimen.
That's awesome.
Sounds like almost like a theme park, but I imagine the practices are not quite that same environment. I wanted to ask you talked about the grind and grit and those sort of things. What does a practice look like, and how do you develop sort of that mental toughness needed to be a great team?
Well, I think depending on the time of the year, it's very different. And I think that that's important to evolve, depending on what the team needs. So right now, we might be doing a little bit more film studying our opponent, studying our own selves, getting feedback from the last opponent, and tapering down in the actual workload and reps. We might the starters might be getting more reps than the non-starters. So the non-starters might have to do extra work on the side in their lifting, strength and conditioning regimen, and that's okay, right? High minute, low minute, and feeling empowered in those different roles throughout the year as different practices shake out. So yeah, I mean, a lot of skill focus right now, a lot of system work, trying to make sure we understand the formation of the next maybe the system that the offense is going to run, how that's going to stretch our zone system, and where we're going to need to work to apply pressure or, recover. And so, those are the types of things that you're seeing going on in our practices right now.
That's awesome. And my final question, kind of a broader one. Since 2020, things have been a little crazy, not only for JMU athletics moving from the Sun Belt for you guys from the CAA to the American Athletic Conference, but also you're dealing with COVID. But through that time, recruited extremely well and has essentially reloaded to become a national title contender this year. What has that journey from 2020 to today been like for you as a coach?
I think in the world of athletics, every year is different. You have to redo your work every year. So I kind of feel like it's been a challenge the last 2 to 3 years, but I feel like the entire 28 years of college athletics has been a challenge. So it's no different. It's just evolving with the times. So now the challenge is, mental health is way more a part of the conversation. Culture is a way more a part of the conversation. Social media is way more a part of the conversation, and how we manage those different factors. You're talking about the portal and recruiting, and what is the message that is out there about our program, and what we're focusing on and what we care about, and how we're dealing with all of this. And I think that luckily for us, some of those factors have always been a part of the conversation. And so nothing's changed really for us. We've always cared about mental health, a balanced perspective within our program, even though we're one of the best programs in the country. Culture has always been a part of who we are, developing the strong woman before the laxer, creating that championship character first, and then the portal, our ability to sustain the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of the year, how we manage our people, how our people feel supported through JMU athletics. I think JMU has set us up really well for managing that, and recruiting with the new facilities at JMU, and us moving into the new conferences, having ESPN plus access, people actually being able to watch our team play. I mean, that makes a huge difference in people's ability to understand how and why JMU is beating these Power 5 programs. They can see it themselves. They're not just reading the story. So yeah. I think that, JMU has grown enough to be able to help us, evolve with the sport and with the times that college athletics is working through. It's not easy, but luckily for us, we've been grounded in the right things all along.
Awesome. I think that's all I've got too, but appreciate the time so much and all the insights.
Well, I appreciate you guys helping us continue to get the story out there. We're very proud of what we're doing here, as our sport grows, and our athletic department grows. So thanks for having us on.
Thank you. It was great talking with Coach.
Yeah, she's awesome. Obviously, they're rolling again this year, number 2 in the country. That was before they beat Furman 21-9. So they're doing well. They're looking good.
They're very good.
It's impressive.
They're very good. They're led by, you heard her talk about it, Isabella Peterson, Maddie Epke, kind of on the attack with Caitlin Bowden in goal, and that whole defensive unit. I think she just kind of talked about them, about how great they've been this season, and It's kind of a younger unit back there, so expect them to grow as this season goes on. And I think this team has a lot more growth to do. And lacrosse can be, maybe I'm bullish by saying that national title is squarely in their sights.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think they raised the whole profile of the athletic department so much, where obviously football kind of dominates the fall, and then you get basketball as the main focus. To have a spring sport that can contend for national titles is huge for keeping your athletic department relevant for like a full athletic year.
Yeah. I mean, next up, it'll be baseball with their 7-game win streak, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now we're going to take it on over to the hardwood. I'm trying to see where all my lower thirds are. They secured a number 2 seed for the Sun Belt tournament. And so that means they'll head down to Pensacola, not having to face off against App State until the very final round. Looking at it, if you're watching the stream, as that covers right up our beautiful faces, oops. But if you're watching the stream, I don't know where I was going with this. Benny, you can take over.
No, it's they're 28-3 and they're not the 1 seed in the Sun Belt. Like, it's so funny, man. App State's legit 26-5, so they've gone on a nice little run themselves. But I like the draw for the Dukes, where they get the winner to start off. They get the winner of Marshall, Georgia State. So they don't play, the JMU doesn't play until Saturday, right? So they'll play Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if things go according to plan. But the first matchup, Georgia State and Marshall, feels really favorable. I think they match up great with both of those teams. After that, like, I don't think Troy's that scary. They haven't played them in the regular season this year.
Yeah.
And they've been solid this year. They're just, I don't know if they're necessarily dangerous. They're just like a solid group. And then, yeah, I think the championship could be a battle. But I think if you're App State, you're a little more fearful because Georgia Southern has been playing some really good basketball. Arkansas State and Louisiana have both played good basketball as well. Whereas JMU, I think you've actually got maybe a better draw as the 2 seed.
Yeah, Louisiana boasts arguably the second best player in the Sun Belt. You could argue TJ Bickerstaff, but that might be a little bit of our bias showing. Louisiana boasts Kobe Julian. Arkansas State, they've been playing like a 3 or even a 2 seed down the stretch, and that's who you're going to have to face off against in potentially the semifinal round. And then waiting for you on the other side, if all things go to JMU's plan, a JMU team that has kind of revenge on its mind. You've knocked them essentially out of the at-large bubble, and now all of a sudden the Sun Belt has 2 teams vying for that 1 spot. And not saying that App State won't be playing for a lot, because of course they'll be playing for a lot, but a motivated team with revenge on its mind, that's a tough thing to do. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a row. However, does it worry you at all that JMU might have to face off against Georgia State in that game? They'll take on the winner of Georgia State and Marshall, because that second half against Georgia State felt a little iffy.
They've played some, I guess, inconsistent basketball the last 4 road games, but I do think playing at home gives you a nice little boost. Yeah, they didn't close great against Georgia State. I guess they didn't close great against Coastal. They kind of go on some stretches where they've done this before, right? Where they go on a few tough stretches, but they have enough like elite stretches where they're fine. I'm just not worried about the Georgia State matchup. If I'm not mistaken, that's the like perfect Terrence Edwards one. I think he scored 30 in the game. The most recent win. Like, it just feels like a great matchup for the best player in your team and the best player in the conference. Shout out Terrence Edwards, Conference Player of the Year. So I'm not worried about that one kind of really at all.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it's also very beneficial that they'd be playing a Georgia State team that would be coming off of a game the day before, so a little bit tired legs.
They get that little gap.
Oh, that 2-day that would. I don't know if you heard me just hit my mic stand really hard.
Because they have the women the same week in the same venue, so the women get Friday, so they rest.
Okay, so not too bad. But, I mean, Georgia State isn't a great team overall. It should be a favorable advantage. And I also think, like, JMU, going back to the crux of the question of, you know, is it worrisome that at the end of these games they've kind of fallen flat and laid these big eggs? Like you said, they're known for going on these lulls. Just in the previous game, specifically at home, but even earlier in the season, they would go on that stretch in the first half. They would go on that stretch to start the second half. It was never like the final 5 minutes of a game, and it just so has happened to come in the final 5 minutes of the game while then the other team gets like red hot for no reason. So I think it just exacerbates the issue where at the end of the day, I think JMU is, I think they're a cut above the rest of the league. I don't even think App State is on the same tier as JMU right now. Is that a bold take?
I put App on the same tier, but I can see the take. I think App's sneaky, like almost underrated because they don't have the same like number of wins. But the home win against Auburn, they're 26-5. So what, they go 16-2 in the league?
Yeah.
They're scary to me. I think both teams, like if they got into the NCAA tournament, would have bracket buster potential. And then I think the rest of the conference sucks.
Yes. Unless Arkansas State somehow sneaks in.
They've played well like in the second half of the year. They're 12-6 in 2024. Arkansas State is. We're looking at that. So yeah, there's like some teams that are playing okay.
Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern's playing hot. They'd be a dangerous 16 seed.
They'd be the worst 16 seed to ever make the conference the NCAA tournament.
How sweet would it be if their first non-conference win was like a 16 seed play-in though?
Purdue.
That'd be kind of fun.
Or like the 1 play-in.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a Purdue Matt Painter fail job all over again. That would be pretty epic too. But no, I see what you're saying. At the end of the day, it's the 1 or the 2 seed, and if neither of them make it into the NCAA tournament, the Sun Belt has the potential to get 40-pieced in the first round or be a play-in team and not even make it to the first weekend.
Interested to see how both those top 2 seeds do from sort of a mental standpoint, because I feel like the expectation with almost everyone is that they're going to meet in the final again. So I wonder if either JMU or App State plays tight at all in the quarterfinal or the semifinal, knowing that like a lot of people are penciling them in to move forward, including probably them in their mind. Like if your season ends with a loss to App, or it wouldn't even really end because both teams would probably end up making the NIT. But if your NCAA dreams end playing right the other best team in the conference, I feel like that's a lot easier to swallow than losing to like Marshall in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see how they react to such lofty expectations around them. The last time they had expectations like this, JMU, I'm speaking of, the last time it had expectations kind of winning the conference tournament was the year Matt Lewis, I think, tore his ACL or blew out his knee or something like that, like the game before the final. And then they went into it and they played, what was it? Elon.
Yeah.
In the quarterfinal, after Matt Lewis blew out his knee in the final game of the regular season, and then they got a 20-point lead, and then you could just see like the worriness just creep in, and then they blew a 20-point lead and lost. That was the last time there were expectations around this team. That was 2021-22.
There have not been, and then I guess they missed the one because the stupid conference ban.
Or was that, it was 2020, 2021 when they blew the 20-point lead to Elon.
Yes, and then the next year they weren't in because of the ban, and then last year they were kind of just iffy, and South Alabama kind of just made them look bad.
They didn't have a big man,
right? They didn't have bigs, and now they have bigs, so it's a huge week for them.
Their bigs. Let's go over quickly the Sun Belt Award.
Yeah.
So Terrence Edwards wins Sun Belt Player of the Year, first team All Sun Belt. He had a 55% true shooting percentage, led the conference with 17.6 points per game. Added on a couple rebounds, about 4, just less than 5. I realized when you say it without the decimal, he had 4 rebounds, just less than 5. Like, yes, that is the order of numbers. That is how it goes. I think he had 4.6. He had a few assists in there as well. Really just a great all-around player that could take games over. And if you watched any games this season, I don't think it was an argument that he was the player of the year.
He was great. He was phenomenal. Bickerstaff gets newcomer of the year. They have newcomer of the year and freshman of the year because it's the portal era. So we love that for him. But second team for Bickerstaff, which I was a little bit surprised by.
Shane Metlin tweeted this out where it was a little interesting that the newcomer of the year was TJ Bickerstaff, who got second team All Sun Belt, and Trevon Spillers, I think, was the second place vote getter for newcomer. Whoever was second place in the newcomer of the year votes was first team All Sun Belt.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but
it kind of gives me throwback to, was it 2 seasons ago or was it just last season when Todd Centeio was second team All Sun Belt, but was offensive player of the year, but Grayson McLeod was player of the year?
Grayson McLeod.
Grayson McCall.
Yeah, no, it's kind of silly how it all works. Award season's a little bit stupid, but and then Friedel made third team, so pretty decent showing overall. But yeah, I mean, I think JMU feels good about their roster. I mean, you've got guys like Horton and Wooden who have been studs all year that don't get honored because they don't have like crazy box score stats, but like you're probably not trading Wooden's offensive game for anyone.
No, and you're not trading the clutchness of Raekwon Horton, who hit like a massive dagger in both the Georgia
Right.
State game and Coastal Carolina game.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal all year. So I think they feel good about the roster. I'm excited for the conference tournament, but it's going to be a challenge.
Bubble watch. It's time for bubble watch. Bubble. Bubble watch, folks. How's the bubble looking, Bennett?
I think you got to win the conference tournament. And I know, so I actually think JMU fans and like some national media are getting angrier and angrier about the fact that JMU could win 30 games and not get in.
I'm seeing
Which,
more
like,
national people like pick it up and they're like, what's happening in Harrisonburg?
maybe they get in. I don't know. I don't see it happening because they don't have any good wins. And I don't like, if you take
Michigan
off the
State.
You take off the purple and gold glasses. Michigan State's 17-12. They've lost.
If you
3 in a row.
ignore their best win, they have no good wins. Come on, man. They are Michigan State.
But Michigan State's like a 10 seed. Michigan State's not like an
and we're
win.
an 11, therefore a good win.
It's a quad 1 win, but it's like, they don't have anything outside of Michigan State. I don't think any team that they've beaten anymore is inside the KenPom top 100. Akron just dropped out.
Cool.
They don't have any Q2 wins anymore. That one lost. I think Louisiana was and moved to Q3. They have 1 win against quad 1 and quad 2. All of their other wins are quad 3, quad 4. I think they have 20 quad 4 wins and then a non-division 1 win.
You know how
there's just nothing on the resume.
How awesome that App State game would have been to win at App. That's a quad 1 win.
Would have been.
The one at App though is a quad 1 win. Granted, the one at home's a quad 2 win, so you're kind of your point of they only have 1 quad 1 and 2 win. Kind of go, yeah. They have a terrible resume. So you think in your mind there's no chance that if they make it to the Sun Belt Conference tournament final and lose by 3 to App State on a buzzer beater. And I know I'm talking in wild hypotheticals of what if this, that, and the other. All of that has to happen. Is there a chance that they get in the NCAA tournament?
I would say there's like a slim chance, depending on what else happens with the bubble and how the committee views like metrics. Like JMU's strength of record is good. Their net is pretty good. Their KenPom's fine. Like their metrics are not bad.
But their SOS is terrible.
Strength of schedule sucks. Like it's sub 300 non-conference on KenPom. That's 340 out of like whatever it is, 360 teams or however many there are now. But it's one of the like 25 worst non-conference schedules in college basketball. And I know there are so many people that love to be like, look, they didn't know Buffalo was going to suck when it was scheduled, or they thought some of these teams, they thought Kent State would be better. That's all true, but it shouldn't matter for them, their resume. It's not like the committee's not going to let them in because JMU thought Buffalo was going to be good.
Could you imagine if I took an AP class in high school and I got a D and I was like, but I took the class. You got to give me some credit for trying. And it's like, well, no, it still didn't work out for you. And it's like, but I tried so hard. Give me the B.
They look the part of an NCAA tournament team. I think they would play well if they got into the tournament. I think they're deserving. I also think they're gonna hurt themselves with the strength of schedule. When you're looking at a team that doesn't have any or has 1 quad 1 win, no quad 2 wins, it's a challenge.
Yeah, and you said their non-conference strength of schedule was one of the worst, one of the 25 worst. It doesn't get much better when you bring in conference too. So I think they go from one of the 25 worst to one of the 50 worst schedules when you also include the Sun Belt portion of it. They don't have the schedule to be like, to point to the 30 wins and be like, but we have 30 of them. Okay. I don't think there is a precedent though for leaving a 30-win team out. I don't think that's ever happened.
That it's so rare to have.
Like, I don't like, I this is where I struggle with it, right? There's no This has never happened before. So does the committee want to make this an example of it, where it's like you have to have better wins? Or do you think they go, but you did win 30 games. You only lost 3 at that point if you lose to App State in the championship.
4, yeah.
4, you've lost 4 games. You're 30-4.
I mean, I hope they get in. I just don't think they will. If they do, I think it would be almost guaranteed that they're playing in the first 4 in Dayton.
How much did those 2 losses against Georgia State and Coastal Carolina, where in both of them in the second half with under 10 minutes to go, in both
Two
games
wins,
they had
2 wins,
what did I say?
2 losses.
They felt like a lot. Man, I'm really bad today with my
You're hating on them today.
But both of those wins, you had a 20-point lead in the second half with under 10 minutes to go.
It was
how different is this conversation if they had ballooned that up to like a 30-point win?
They teased, right? They teased with those giant margins that would really boost the metrics, and then didn't end up winning by a gazillion. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the couple Sunbelt tournament games before the final, assuming they win those games. I think they're a deserving team. I also think there's a decent chance none of that matters and they just punch their ticket, because I think they're probably the best team in the conference.
Yeah, unless Justin Apson blocks 15 shots again.
See if they run back that same game plan. I would like to see that final again.
I would too.
I think it'd be a great game.
I would be on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Yeah.
And I would be yelling things at the television every time they drove into the lane.
Yeah. I guess my last point on Bubble Watch here is if they play App again and lose to App, it's tough to be like, our schedule gets better in the Sun Belt, and then be like, because of this team, and they swept us 3 times, 1 in our place, 1 in their place, 1 on a neutral. I think that would be really tough, where you're like, I think they're 0-1 in quad 2 now, because they still have a quad 2 loss. So they'd be like 1-3 or something against quad 1 and 2. That doesn't look great.
No, not at all. That's a good point. And also a point I want to get back to is, man, if Southern Miss had been without Andre Gerbello for that game, does that change anything?
Yeah, you avoid like the terrible loss, and then you could be like, if you only lose to App, you're like, our only losses were to one team, and that one team is like in the field, and beat Auburn. Like, I think that would help you too. So there's so many like shoulda, coulda, woulda. But okay, here we go. Who wins the Sun Belt Conference tournament, men's?
James Madison.
I like that. Who do they beat?
I think it's JMU and App in the final, and I think JMU wins by like 10.
Really?
I think JMU,
wow.
Maybe I'm being a little boisterous. Maybe I'm being a little too, maybe I'm looking at this game with my purple tinted glasses on. You've played them twice. You know what doesn't work, right? Like, you know what doesn't work. Please don't do that again. Plus, JMU has a little X factor in their back pocket that they haven't had the first 2 games. I'm not saying he's hot, folks, but I'm saying he just dropped 16 on the Chanticleer's head and went 4 for 9 from deep. That's right. MG3, Michael Green III, he's back. First game, all conference time, where he had more than 2 threes made.
He's back.
And if JMU's got Michael Green going 4 for 9 from deep, it's over. They win.
They feel like a team that should be playing in the NCAA tournament.
I will be heartbroken. My fandom will destroy me if they lose to App in the final again.
And I do think the first couple rounds have a chance to be really interesting, because it feels almost like a foregone conclusion that it'll be JMU App. Like, one of those 2 teams, if not both, are going to like face an early deficit against one of these teams and have to find it in them. Because it's easy to get tense in one of these games. Like, if you're playing Georgia Southern on the road in the regular season, you're down 15, like, certainly easy to get tense. I think the St. Mary's team here that's on the bottom quadrant had 28 wins actually before the tournament. But so maybe that was regular.
There's no precedent for leaving
the most wins a team has ever had, like D1 wins, and missed the NCAA tournament, was 28. So
and JMU would have 29.
Yeah, they would have 29 D1 wins if they win the next 2 and then lose the Sun Belt final.
One last thing I want to hit on before we move on to women's basketball here. Do you wish the Sun Belt adopted the WCC, the West Coast Conference's approach to how they do their tournament? And just so everyone's aware, how they do the tournament, the 1 and 2, it's essentially like a ladder where the 1 and 2 seeds start in the semifinal. And then from there on out, everyone, the 4, the 5 get the bye into the quarters, the 6 and 7 get a bye into the first round, I guess they call it. And then there's like essentially a play in between like the 8, 9, 10, and 11, where the 8 and 9, the win. So it's a ladder system where if you're an 8, 9 seed, you have to win 4 straight games to get to the championship.
I actually like that. It doesn't make for like a particularly entertaining conference tournament necessarily, and obviously favors the crap out of the regular season top teams. I just think that makes sense because you're trying to get your best team or one of your best teams into the NCAA tournament where they could potentially win games and make the conference money. That feels like it should be valued. Also, it's I don't know, like if you win your regular season title or finish as a top 2 seed, you should have a significant advantage in terms of getting to the NCAA tournament.
I agree. I put it out on Twitter as like a potentially hot take, and it seemed like it actually wasn't that hot of a take, and most people agreed with it. One person, Middle Tennessee beat writer Sam Doughton, said the format makes it, the WCC format of not having your top 2 teams play until the semifinal round makes it harder to sell tickets, and it gets significantly harder logistically the more teams that are in the league, how you kind of set that up going outwards. I think you just cap it and you only let's say 8 teams into the postseason tournament. The goal for these tournaments is to get your best team into the NCAA tournament so that in the end, you can then have the best opportunity to win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament, thus making a lot of money for your conference.
Yeah. Also, like the ticket stuff for the Sun Belt seems irrelevant. Like, I don't know how many JMU and App fans are really going to go to Pensacola to watch a championship on a Monday night.
Yeah. Imagine the atmosphere if this was in Roanoke.
Imagine if it was in Roanoke, but it's not. So it's, I don't know. I don't care about like the conference tournament tickets. It seems different if you're like the ACC, where like all these teams are going to travel to watch like a great basketball tournament.
Yeah.
Like the Sun Belt's a little bit different, where it's like it's not great basketball and you're only going to watch your team.
You can travel though and watch men's and women's because it's in the same venue, same place, rotating nights. JMU women's basketball, they'll get going down in Pensacola as the 3 seed. They finished their year up with a dominant win over ODU. And so the women as the 3 seed, if you're watching the stream, you can see it up on the screen now. JMU would take on the winner of either Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina, or South Alabama. So Coastal Carolina and South Alabama play in the first round. The winner then takes on Southern Miss. The winner of that game then would take on JMU.
That's right. Going to be hard.
You think it's going to be hard?
I think it's just a tough path. You know, I think the Sun Belt women's league is a lot deeper. So like if you're able to get through that first one, then maybe you're playing Troy. Troy's really good. If you can get through that, you're facing possibly Marshall, which is really, you have to like play better for longer than you do with the men's. With the men's, like JMU probably doesn't have to play a great game until the final to win the conference championship. I think that's not true for the women. That's fair.
Big thing for the women, Heaven Bristow has played with the team the last 2 games, which is very big, getting her back into the rotation. Kozlova, it's still a question mark on what her availability, what her health will be during this tournament. She hasn't played with the team, I think, for the last 2 weeks at least. But a bright spot for this team is the emergence of Annalisa Goodman. She's been on fire since she's been slotted into the starting lineup. Going back to February 15th, she has played 22 minutes or more in each game. She's had in those, 6 games, 4 of them have been double-digit performances, and she's tacked on rebounds, 11 rebounds, 7, 9, 5, 9, 6. I mean, she's been really stepping in extremely well for Kozlova. And if you bring Kozlova back and get her healthy for this women's Sun Belt tournament, that's a powerful front court.
That would be impressive. I don't know exactly where her health stands because I did not listen to Coach O today. But
I don't think he's playing it very close to the chest. I didn't listen to him today either. But if how he's been handling it leading up to this, he probably he's keeping it close to his chest.
If they get her back, huge. If they don't, it's going to be a tough path. It's going to be a tough path anyway. But I'm excited for it. I think that one has a chance to be more entertaining throughout the entire tournament than the men's bracket does. Yeah, they're playing well. They're a solid team again. I think Coach O's did a nice job positioning them where they're competitive on an annual basis. McDaniel and Kozlova, both second team all Sun Belt. McDaniel's been doing some nice stuff. We'll see.
Speaking of McDaniel, Daniel Merriman wrote an awesome article kind of breaking down the overall season for women's basketball. One of the really interesting statistical polls that he had was Peyton McDaniel really like erupting recently. I think he said in conference play, she's shooting like 45% from three.
Yep, she's up around 45, I think over maybe 45% from three. It was like sub 30% in non-conference play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a big reason why the Dukes have started to find this rhythm over the last few games. Since February 15th, I'll just keep using that as kind of the baseline. Not sure exactly why, but it's just a nice, easy last 6 games type of thing. She has shot sub 50% just twice.
She's a great scorer.
She was a great shooter. Yeah. I mean, going back to the Texas State Sun Belt Championship game last year when she went 7 for 7 from deep, if she can find a rhythm, that just then opens it up, and Hazel can go to work. Bristow, a slasher. Daniel did a really good job highlighting Heaven Bristow's impact on the team in that piece. Her impact can be felt even more than if you bring back Kozlova. If Goodman can continue being that presence down low, it opens up her to go to work down there. This team might be starting to find its rhythm at the right time.
I think they're playing decent basketball, so it'll be fun to watch them. I don't expect them to win the conference tournament, but I think they'll be in the mix. I think that I would see them. I kind of think they're going to lose to Troy in the semis, but I hope they prove me wrong, go a little bit deeper. I just think it's hard because Kozlova is one of the best players on the entire roster. She's so consistent offensively down low, and obviously Goodman stepped up. I just think it's hard sort of over time to consistently show up. I guess the good news for the women, the men, I think it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 3 in a row. It's Friday to Sunday, quarters to semifinals. So they do get, if they win that first game, a day of rest, which could be valuable, right? If you're playing Goodman mostly in the post and then Tynes coming in and you don't have Kozlova available, you do have a little bit of extra rest for the semifinal at least.
Yeah. Does it change anything in your thought process that they just went to ODU and dominated the Monarchs 70-58?
That was a huge one. Yeah. I mean, to lock up the 3 seed. So, I mean, that certainly helps. I do think they're playing well. I just think that Troy and ODU and Marshall are also legit. So it's going to be tough, but hey, they did it last year. I think there's probably some confidence in Pensacola. It's not a bad setup for them. Yeah,
over their last 4, they played them like the men all away. Still not sure why that men's and women's both were away for the final 4 games of the season, going into an away event, but that's besides the point. Over that 4-game stretch, the men did something amazing by going 4-0. Women not far behind, going 3-1. Their lone loss was a 4-point loss to App State without Kozlova. I think they're really finding their stride. I think they're really finding a rhythm right now.
Are they going to win this thing?
I think there's a chance that they make it to the final.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to follow. That tournament's going to be awesome, I think.
Yeah. And if they make it to the final, to me, that is huge for them. Because how we've been following this team, there was a point where it was like, are they broken? And then they seemed to figure it out. And then the injury to Bristow, the injury to Kozlova. But now it seems like they're really starting to everything's coming together.
It would be really awesome if they could win back-to-back conference tournament titles, get to the NCAA tournament again. It would be huge for the program. But yeah, putting themselves in the mix again, they're sort of like a fringe top 100 net team. You're probably not asking for a ton more than that on sort of the average year for your any basketball program. So Coach O's got him in a nice spot again.
Especially with this entire team coming back, except for Bristow and Carol Miller.
Yeah, they return a ton.
So this is another great building job by Coach O to have them set up for the next few years with a really strong core. Keep it locked to our YouTube channel, our Twitter, everything like that. You can follow us at JMU Sports News. Be sure to like, rate, subscribe, all that great stuff over on our YouTube. We'll have our 3-notched weekly preview coming out once JMU knows their opponent in this first round of the Sun Belt men's basketball tournament. So keep it locked there. That's going to drop over on YouTube, and we'll post some clips on Twitter breaking down the opponent that JMU will be facing in that quarterfinal round of the Sun Belt men's basketball tournament. So that's everything going down in Pensacola. Up here in Harrisonburg, the Dukes are getting ready for the 2024 football season. The schedule just dropped. It's official. We know who, when, where, why, and how each team is coming to Harrisonburg, when the Dukes are leaving Harrisonburg. The schedule's here. Was it like Christmas for you, or are you not that big into schedule drops?
I like schedule drops. I like knowing what's happening, who they're playing, how they're getting there. As you said, Southern Miss probably by plane. I'm
Probably most of their away games by plane.
Yeah, well, that one Southern Miss is home, so Southern Miss visiting them by plane.
Oh, okay. I hate you. Set me up to walk right into that failure.
No, but I guess what are your initial takeaways? Should we go through the 12 game schedule?
Well, let's first pinpoint our favorite games. So we'll break down our favorite games on the schedule. Then we'll go into letdown spots, hype scale, and then we'll go game by game record prediction.
Oh my God. All right.
Favorite games.
Favorite games. I think the obvious circle it. We've known about it already is that North Carolina.
Wrong.
September 21st.
Wrong.
To me, that one is probably my favorite game. But if I had to pick a Sun Belt game, well, I mean, it's kind of an obvious one. So I'll leave that one for you. But I'm pretty excited for the home Thursday night game against Coastal Carolina, October 10th. I think that has a chance to be a really fun atmosphere. I think the early season schedule sets up quite well for the Dukes, where they could have a nice record going into that one. And if you win it, you're really poised for a special second half of the year.
Which game did you think I was going to pick? Because my favorite game is clearly August 31st at Jerry Richardson Stadium on the campus of Charlotte, taking on the Fighting Biff Pogies. Real opportunity to show the nation what they've got.
I don't love opening with two FCS opponents, but it kind of is what it is.
That was so well delivered. Bravo for that one. I don't even have a rebuttal for that. I mean, they've been playing like an FCS team for their entire existence. I probably shouldn't say that.
So what's your what's your real favorite game?
I actually am very excited for the Charlotte game. It's in Charlotte, so it's going to be a fun atmosphere. I think JMU might outdraw the 49er fans, although the 49er fans do come out for big games kind of in droves. So it's going to be a good atmosphere there. There's going to be hype. People are going to buy into the Biff Poggi hype. They're going to buy the snake oil that he's going to be selling this offseason, and they're going to be all in for what this 49er squad is going to be. And they may be really good. They had a top-end transfer incoming class. On paper, they have talent. Now, how will that talent go into being an actual team on the field? It didn't go so well for them in Biff Poggi's first year last year, but here in year two, maybe they figured some things out. Charlotte could be a sneaky good game to start this season off. So non-conference, that's my favorite game. I'm really looking forward to. I can't talk tonight. Whatever. At App State is my favorite Sun Belt game.
Yeah, November 23rd in Boone. Ooh.
The Rock. Well, that should be a really good game. I mean, JMU won at App last season. App won at JMU this season. So now an opportunity for the Dukes to go down to Boone and try and even the score. Another good one is that Senior Day matchup to finish out the season. I've heard rumors that JMU will be wearing black against some fans' hopes and wishes. So hopefully that doesn't come back and bite them like it has in the past, because we all know their record in the black jerseys is terrible, which is fake news. But that last game against Marshall, I think Marshall's going to have a bounce back year. They had a down year. It seems like their fans are out on Charlie Huff right now. But I think he's a good coach. I think the Thundering Herd are a good team. They just didn't have a quarterback last year. And that final 2 weeks of the season could be for Sunbelt East.
Yeah, I wonder what ODU is going to be, because that final 3 is fun, if nothing else, at ODU, at App, home against Marshall. Feels like they saved a lot of the most exciting East opponents for the final 3 weeks.
Well, and then you start the season with Biff Poggi, the current coach of Charlotte. You got an ex-coach of Charlotte there on November 9th as well. So you can be finishing out the year with 4 really great games.
Who's the ex-Charlotte?
Will
I forgot
Healy.
they added Will Healy. I was talking about that
Will
yesterday.
Healy is the Georgia State running back coach now after Sean Elliott left. I'm going to be bummed we don't have Sean Elliott. Georgia State might be a dumpster fire this year.
Might be, but they've done a nice job with building. I think their staff from a recruiting perspective, like in future seasons, is going to be fascinating because they got some guys that know what they're doing.
Yeah, they might be a very good team in coming. I don't think you can ever be a good team at Georgia State because there's no fan support.
I think that makes it hard, right? If you're like, you're like
come to Georgia State and then you go to Turner Field and you're like, okay, don't look to the visitor sideline. I know they outdrew us, but if you focus on this small, see ya. But the last 3 weeks, if ODU can kind of build upon this last season where they were pretty darn good, each one of those final 3 games could have huge Sunbelt East ramifications.
Also, not a lot, just a general takeaway, not a lot of travel compared to last year where they were, what Kurt Cinetti kept saying, like, we've been wronged by the justice system, basically, where they had to like travel to Utah State and they kind of seemed like they ran out of steam. They don't have any spots this year where they should run out of steam. And the way the schedule falls, they have 2 bye weeks, which I think everyone does, but pretty cool.
Yeah. But also, like you said, last year they started at home against Bucknell and then road UVA, road Utah State, road Troy.
Troy first and then Utah State. Yeah.
Terrible stretch. This year it's on the road, at home, 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 at home, on the road, at home. That is a perfect setup.
And what a nightmare emotionally last year. Like UVA, best team in the West, and then travel way out west. Like that was just an awful combination of things that they somehow were able to kind of weather that storm.
At the point of the season where they were playing their worst football and it wasn't even close.
Like because they spent all fall camp not with McLeod as the starting quarterback and they didn't tackle. That all made a ton of sense in hindsight.
For you gotta watch the stream to see what Bennett just did on that one. Any letdown spots? Kind of like you said, how the schedule shakes up. There aren't many like road home, like letdown type of spots or a trap game.
I wouldn't anticipate them having too many letdowns. I think the 2 that kind of stand out as possible letdowns would be Ball State at home coming off a North Carolina game where if you win it, I could see them getting kind of cocky. And then family weekend crowds are kind of just weird. So it could end up being kind of a dead, but I mean, like, do you need your A game against Ball State? Probably not. And then the one after that at ULM, kind of one of their, I guess, longer road trips to a team that might not be very good before playing Coastal Thursday at home in a game that could have a ton of hype and will be on national TV. So I could see those 2 maybe being kind of letdown spots.
I'm looking at the schedule. I don't see a letdown spot.
Is it a weak schedule?
Maybe 1 second. Maybe at Georgia Southern. Maybe if like I had to pick one and you took that other one with Ball State, you're coming off of potentially like an emotional game against Coastal, mainly because like there's that like pseudo rivalry, even though we've outscored them 150-10 over the last 8 quarters of football.
Yeah.
But either it's an emotional game that's charged, that's going to be kind of head to head type of thing, or it's another like just massive blowout and you're riding the high then at that point of probably blowing out ULM, blowing out Coastal, and you're like, we're going to go to Georgia Southern, and weird things happen in Statesboro. Look at 2022. I think that might be a letdown spot. Maybe.
Got a mini bye though going into it.
I know. Mini bye. But I really don't know. Yes, I think it's a weak schedule. I think it is not in a bad way because last year's was kind of like this gauntlet. But this year just feels like the biggest game is at UNC against a Tar Heels team that is going to be in presumed a down year.
I mean, I think anything less than 8-4 without like a quarterback injury, and I feel like people are going to be pissed.
All right, let's go record prediction. You ready?
Okay.
So game 1 at Charlotte, win.
Win.
Game 2, Hall of Fame weekend, Gardner-Webb at home.
Win.
Call me crazy. I think this one might go to the Dukes.
Yeah.
At North Carolina.
They get a bye before this one, man. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win.
Okay, I'm going to say L.
Okay.
Ball State at home, family weekend.
Win.
Win. I agree with you there. At ULM to open up Sunbelt play, the first ever trip for the Dukes to Monroe, Louisiana.
Win.
Win. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you there. Coastal Carolina at home. First time that they're playing Coastal not to finish the season.
It's true. I think it's a win where Coastal's receivers down 30 are like talking a lot of junk, per usual.
Something I hate. That might be one of my most hated things in sports is when you're blowing out another team and they're still talking trash.
like a lot of trash.
Like a lot. All right. At Georgia Southern.
Loss.
Mini bye. Loss. I'm going to say win.
Okay.
So we're at the same record right now, 6-1, heading into homecoming against Southern Miss.
Win.
I agree. I just don't think, I mean, Southern Miss lost Frank Gore Jr. this offseason, and that type of production, he plays quarterback for him. He plays running back for him. That's something that's really hard to recreate. So I think Southern Miss is going to take a step back without Frank Gore Jr. there in the backfield.
Fair enough.
Do you remember when he played quarterback?
Yeah.
When
they have, they need a quarterback so bad. It's painful.
Georgia State at home.
That's a win. They got a bye for that one too.
Yeah, Georgia State might be good. What is it? Del McGee is their new head coach.
I think so.
Del McGee might make the Panthers into something very strong in the Sun Belt East in the coming years. I don't think this is that year. Not only did they lose a ton of production to the portal, you also lost a ton of production to graduation. At ODU.
Win.
I'm going to say loss.
I like that. I think that would add a little like much needed something to the rivalry.
Yeah, because right now, air quotes around it, the royal rivalry is more so the Dukes dominating the Monarchs. But ODU was good last year. They weren't great, but they were good. It seems like things are being built in the right direction for Ricky Ronnie. Ricky Ronnie. And I think the Monarchs are going to be, remember last year, I had Georgia State as my dark horse winner of the Sun Belt East, and that looked great for the first 6 weeks of the season. ODU, I have a sneaky feeling is going to be my dark horse to win the East.
Your darling.
My darling. All right. So I'm sitting here at 8-2. You're at 9-1 at App State.
L.
I agree with you. I think over this stretch, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, it will be.
And I have them, both of these games, losses. Marshall. Home,
I think they beat Marshall at home.
I think they crush them at home. So
what do you?
That's you getting them at 10-2.
Yeah.
I have them at 9-3.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's like that's like somewhat conservative.
That was me being very like that final 3 games. In my heart of hearts, with my purple glasses on, I think worst case scenario is 2-1. But being ultra conservative, picking these games right now, I put them at 1-2.
It's crazy, right? Because they lose their head coach, they lose like all of their production, basically. But they return some guys who are really good that maybe didn't have as much like stats, but you can tell are good. They loaded up in the portal. Chesney's a good coach. Their like assistant coaches are legit. The schedule's favorable. I think anything worse than 8-4 would be very, very disappointing. And I do think they have a legit chance to go into November with like college football playoff aspirations.
If they go into November with a win over UNC, yes. I think they will be the front runner to do it.
I think
you can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we don't actually know like what the Sun Belt will be, right? I feel like every year we're like that team will be good, this team will be good. But like if ULM or Southern Miss like happen to be better than we expect and they're like bowl teams in the West, then the strength of schedule is not quite as bad as we think. Like you can really build a resume if some of these teams like slightly exceed expectations. The same with like Charlotte and Ball State. If they can work their way into a bowl game and the wins aren't terrible there, you've got a good resume.
I don't think it's crazy to say that Charlotte makes a bowl this year, but I still think that's an easy win. I think you can win. How many games do you think you can lose and still make it as the group of 5 representative in the college football playoff? I think it's only one.
That's probably my lean too. I think you would need a lot of chaos if you have
two losses or more. Maybe a lawsuit.
Maybe a lawsuit. That's a good point.
All right, thank you. So JMU football, they begin their season on August 31st in Charlotte, North Carolina, against the Fighting Biff Pogies, also known as the 49ers. It's going to be a great season. I can't wait. We'll be breaking things down consistently and keep it locked on our YouTube for more kind of one-off ideas and things that we have throughout this offseason for football. All right. It's time for everyone's favorite segment.
Which I've prepared for sure today. We're going to hit you with not quotes.
Oh, I forgot about News or Snooze entirely.
Skip News or Snooze.
Do you not have anything?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm so glad News or Snooze is not. Is your favorite your own apology tour?
The lower third for our podcast listeners. Is it time to apologize? The Dukes sit at 8-3 this season. They're in the midst of a 7-game home winning streak, which is the longest winning streak since 2000 or home winning streak since 2003.
What? Oh my God.
That is from WHSV's, I believe his name is Connor. Great follow. Highly recommend it.
WHSV's Connor.
I forgot his last name, but I didn't want to butcher it here. Ross Orr 11. Did Fitz shave in preparation for his Eikenberry apology? You know, I was trying to look all fresh, and I was like, I'll shave it off. I'll be looking nice. I'm still not apologizing. It's not time to apologize. I'm not doing it. No, it's not time to apologize. Look, congrats. You beat Cornell, the Big Red. All right, cool. I know Georgia Tech couldn't do it. I don't care. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to sweep Fairfield. You're supposed to beat Cornell. Am I happy? Yes. They look good. But at the end of the day, you got a big series this weekend against East Tennessee, who blew out Lafayette to start the season, a plus 45 scoring margin over that opening weekend against the Lafayette Leopards. The Dukes don't have a plus 45 scoring margin on the season. However, they're looking good. Their offense is firing on all cylinders. You got 2 players batting above 400. You have 4 if you make it plus 300. Coleman Calabrese. I got to figure out how to pronounce his last name correctly, because last week on the podcast I said Calabrese. Don't think it's Calabrese. I think it's Calabrese. Wyatt Pfeiffer, both of them hitting above 400. Coleman has been electric. He has 20 hits in his 41 at-bats this season, 5 home runs, tied for the team lead with 13 RBIs, an .878 slugging percentage, and a .532 on-base percentage. He has been a great offensive just rocket in this lineup this season. Fenwick Trimble, after a little bit of a slower start, he's starting to kind of find his groove. He's third on the team with 2 home runs and 9 RBIs. Brendan O'Donnell batting .289, but big pop in his bat, second on the team in slugging percentage, tied for the team lead with 5 home runs. The offense is getting it done. The offense is looking very, very good. And then the pitching staff has really started to find a very, very good rhythm. Jaden Kinsler with a 3.68 ERA. Todd Mazzocchi has started the season a little bit slow, but threw a gem of a game against Cornell in his last start. You're seeing some things come together. Jackson Logar. Ooh, Logan Jackson. Don't know where I got that. Jackson Logar. He's made 5 appearances, 8 1/3 innings pitched, a team low 2.16 ERA. Good stuff. But no, I'm not apologizing.
Coleman Calabrese.
Okay.
No apology. Guess Fairfield's record this year.
1-12.
0-10. Yeah, like that sweep's not impressive. Cornell's not supposed to be good. So I think we need to see a lot more baseball before you apologize. Well, a couple of interesting midweeks with VMI and Richmond. Neither of their teams are very good. So those are two winnable ones as well. But yeah, you mentioned it. ETSU on the road is a little bit more of a test. Let's see how they do in that one.
I will say, though, in past, ooh, that was a nice voice crack after I was yelling about apologizing. In the past years, JMU would have found a way to lose the Cornell series or the Fairfield series or drop 2 games across the 6 and go 4-2 over those games. It is wildly impressive that they swept them because they haven't really done that a lot in these past 8 years since Eikenberry has taken over. This team looks and feels like a much better JMU team. It feels like they're going in the right direction. It feels like they're legit. They have the talent. The coaching is there. They're finally, I don't know whether it's buy-in, whether the culture is finally taking place, but like they've battled back in a few games to pull out wins. They've held big leads against Virginia Tech. They squandered it. Then they ended up coming back and winning still. They've had a few come from behind victories. This team feels different than last year's or 2 years ago. With that being said, I still expect a middle of the pack Sun Belt finish because the Sun Belt is so good. So ETSU is going to be a very good barometer for this team. Then you got a midweek series against Niagara, and then you start kind of just this gauntlet of a Sun Belt series, this Sun Belt season, starting things off with Coastal in Conway.
Yeah, it's Texas State's legit. They play them the next series. And I mean, it's going to be a tough schedule here soon. I'm excited to see what they can do. It is a promising start, but yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think our whole thing too has not been that they've been bad at baseball under Eikenberry. It's that
They've
they
been
haven't made a regional, right? They've been average.
They've been 500, quite literally the definition of average. My issue was that you fired Matt Brady for being average and not having postseason success. And like you talk about the standard is the standard, and then you can't even air any of the games this weekend on ESPN Plus, and then you extend an average coach. Things are going in the right direction. It's looking like that may have been the right decision, and what do I know? But I still think there's a lot more time that needs to come. We need to see more results, and maybe we need to see them on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, thoughts on the games not airing this week, or not like they failed to air, right? They just weren't scheduled to be broadcast.
Yeah, I could say a lot of things on that. I think if you follow my Twitter, there are some interesting, not interesting. There's some pent up emotion with how kind of baseball's been covered this year to start. I think it's kind of a shame for the program. And how do you expect to grow as a program when you're not even being aired on your own ESPN Plus platform? There's no reason whatsoever to not have every single one of their home games covered. If the standard is the standard, if you just put all that money into a magnificent new studio, I don't care if it's a one camera broadcast. I think it needs to be aired.
Yeah,
Ross or 11 real quick. April 14th. Let's go ahead and schedule the apology. April 14th is going to be after their ODU series. ODU is good, folks. ODU is really good.
That'll be a good check-in. I think another one that's a little disappointing for me, and it's still super early in the year, so we don't know if they're actually any good, but Niagara had a 4-game road sweep of Richmond. I think they lost their series to Queens, but they're
they did. Rise up, Royals rise, baby.
They're 8-2. It's early. But if I'm not mistaken, those 2 midweek home games don't have a little ESPN Plus thing there. I don't know if there's an overlap with something else. Like, I don't know if lacrosse is at home. I don't know. But like, that's the kind of thing that's a little bit frustrating where it's like midweeks at home against a team that actually might not be completely dreadful. Would be really interesting to see how they play going into a Sun Belt series. To not have it aired it's disappointing. Like, I don't know every logistic that goes into airing the games, but it's to miss like a bunch of home games early in the year is pretty disappointing, to be honest.
Yeah, Niagara, that series as of now looks like it won't be aired. So that means 5, 6, 7 4 of the final 7 home games going into the conference schedule are not aired on ESPN Plus. You can still listen to the audio only stream on the Varsity Network app, but that's just not ESPN Plus.
It's 2024.
It is 2024. And you spent $1 million on a broadcast studio.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for, I'm going to cut them a lot of slack for most things. It's hard for me when you have some fans or people hyping up like a graphic from a nonsense account saying they're a top 10 athletic department in the country when they don't like air all the baseball home games. Like you're better than LSU or in the same breath as LSU. I don't know. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit on some of that.
Yeah, I got thoughts. I don't want to get blocked by any more people involved in the broadcast. So,
well, I think the broadcasts are good too. Like they do a decent job on like giving me visuals. So I just want more visuals when possible. I know like it's hard and stuff, but like the more I can see the baseball team that's playing well, the better. Because I would have liked to have watched some of the Cornell series.
Yeah, we'll move off of this. I feel like we're kind of like old men yelling, "Get off my lawn!" here at this point. JMU softball, they went 2-3 at the Arizona State Invitational, and you guessed it, Arizona.
That's a great guess. Kind of a disappointing, I would say, invitational for the Dukes. I think they led Arizona State early, but ended up losing that one. Then they lost their last 2 games to Omaha and North Florida. So a losing record in this one. Disappointing. They're 12-7 overall, but I feel like they missed a decent chunk of opportunities. I was feeling kind of down about it, and I started to think about it more. I think I forget who tweeted this. Might have been like Amanda Scarborough, but she had some tweet about softball teams in the early season travel, and like if your team looks off, like maybe look at their schedule. So then I did. Probably not the easiest thing in the world to go playing in Jacksonville, Florida. You come home for a weekend, and then you go to Columbia for a really competitive, challenging weekend. And then right after that, within a week, you're in Arizona. I can kind of understand why you might struggle with that kind of travel, especially with a team that I think some of the best players are underclassmen. So a young team, ton of travel, playing decent competition. They're a good team. They come home this weekend, have some winnable games, and they play Texas State, which will be a tough series after that at home. But they're good. I don't know if they're going to make a regional because they've missed some key opportunities, but at the same time, like I think it's a young team that's getting better and is fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, one of their games' first pitch was at 10:30 Eastern, 10:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So that's just tough on a college kid. That's tough on anyone. I mean, imagine going to the West Coast and when your body's clock is still on East Coast time and they're like, okay, you got to play a game at 11 p.m. You're like, what?
Yeah, you play Arizona State super late and then wake up in the morning and have to play 2 games the next day. It can wear on you quick.
Yeah. So next up, I believe they have the Wheeler Orthodontics Invitational, I believe it's called.
That's right. That's right. Some super winnable games that will be on ESPN Plus, which is one of the first times all year we've got a chance to see them because they've been on the road so much. So I'm excited to actually have a chance to put some eyes on them.
Yeah, rather than just live stats. And last but certainly not least, a quick Olympic sports roundup around everything. Swim and dive, they were at the ECAC championships. They had 7 swimmers compete across the weekend at the ECAC championship. Jess Bryn took the silver in the 200 individual medley. Caitlin Fitzgerald time trialed the 200 fly. I'm saying things. Some of it I know what I'm saying. Other things I do not. Jess Bryn swam an NCAA B cut time in the 400 individual is it individual medley?
Mm-hmm.
I like how you actually covered swimming for UVA.
It was pretty limited. My swimming was like, this swimmer's in the Olympics. Story.
That's a lot more than what I've done in my past. Suzanne Earnshaw finished 3rd in the consolation heat. Riley Bridgman finished 3rd with a time of 4 minutes 19 seconds, moving her into 3rd in the JMU record book for the 400 individual medley. Abby McGuire got to the finals. Angela Ritchie and Chapel Ellington both also qualified for the A final in the 200 free.
Nice.
Then up next, 5 divers are going to head to the NCAA Zone A Diving Championship hosted by Princeton in Princeton, New Jersey. Thank you to the swimming and dive press release.
Yes, if it's a sport you haven't followed, it's a tough one to catch up on. Even the press releases sometimes put my head in a blender.
Yeah, I couldn't. That was hard to follow. And I'm really glad you sat back and watched me just flub my way through that.
They've had a great year, though. Sunbelt champs. So far, right? The only JMU program to win a Sunbelt championship.
Yep. That can soon change by this time next week.
Yes.
But as of right now, that is the case. Anything else you want to hit before we get up on out of here?
I do. We're through 1 day of 2 days of the Women's Golf River Landing Classic. The Dukes lead that event through 1 day. So tomorrow they'll close it out. Hoping to send a tweet that they win the whole River Landing Classic, which if I'm not mistaken, they had a pretty good showing in last year. Let me quickly confirm that. Second last year. Yeah, it was one I thought they were going to win. But if they could sort of right the wrong of their 2nd out of 11 at the River Landing. Ooh. But Tommy Baker's got them rolling per usual. We got to connect with him again soon. They're cooking.
It's been a long time.
They're cooking, yeah.
They are cooking. So for Bennett Conlon, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for tuning into the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. We'll be back sometime early next week to break down JMU's, what we're hoping will be, Sunbelt men's basketball and women's basketball championship. In the meantime, keep it locked to our YouTube, our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the above. You can find us at JMU Sports News. Once we know the opponents, we'll be breaking down some 3-notched weekly previews for those opponents. The Dukes are the 2 seed in men's basketball. The Dukes are the 3 seed in women's basketball. Women's will be taking on one of 3 opponents. The Dukes will be taking on the winner of Georgia State, Marshall over this weekend. It should be a great time to be a JMU Dukes fan. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. See ya.